Hi, this is Nathan Laws from the 42 Cast, and you are listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea with your hosts, Jeff and Bryan.
Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm with my friend Bryan, and we'll be talking about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in all its forms. But before we do that, let's listen to a message from one of our proud sponsors.
This is Sheila from Sheila's Ear. Let me tell you what I've heard. The Lamuella Knife Company is proud to announce the release of Strinder, the toolmaker's perfectly normal knives. Proper tools are crucial when making a sandwich. Perfectly normal knives have suppleness, strength, keenness of edge, and balance. The Sandwich Maker collection contains 3 knives. First, the knife for the slicing of the bread. It is a firm, authoritative blade which imposes a clear and defining will on a loaf. Next is the butter spreading knife. It is a whippy little number, but still with a firm backbone to it. The combination of flexibility with a core of strength is exactly right to achieve the maximum smoothness and grace of spread. The chief amongst the knives in this collection, of course, is the carving knife. This knife does not merely impose its will on the medium through which it moves, it works with it. It is guided by the grain of the meat to achieve slices of the most exquisite consistency and translucency that will slide away in filmy folds from the main hunk of the meat. For a limited time, if you act now, you will receive a 4th and altogether plainer knife at no additional charge for cutting the sandwich in half.
Hey Bryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. How are you?
Well, I'm feeling neglectful.
Neglectful? What did you neglect?
I neglected to look at some of the notes that I had about the trading cards and do them in the last issue of books for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So what I'm going to do is, even though the card series came out in conjunction with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, some of the cards that I thought were interesting that I didn't use the last time,
Okay.
I'm going to show them to you at the beginning of each of these issues before we get into the book.
Okay. Sounds fair. Then we can feel better about ourselves.
That's right. So we are going to talk about the comic book, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. Like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it is 3 issues.
Yes.
And the first issue here, we're looking at the cover, and we have a scared and an angry Zaphod all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We have some ships in the background that remind me of Yoda.
Yeah. Okay.
Marvin is looking depressed, and Arthur is frightened and shaking his tea.
Yes, he is. It's interesting. The header, or the title on this volume, is reminiscent of the other volumes,
Yes.
but definitely different. It doesn't have Arthur and doesn't have Vogons at the top of the screen.
Yes.
It has the little planets that are represented there,
Right.
but there are no Babel fish.
No
or
Babel fish,
terrifying
no characters.
fish.
No, not at all.
So we're already off to a bit of a different start.
Yes.
It almost looks like Marvin's outfit's a little tiny bit different. I don't remember him wearing more like tuxedo-looking colors.
Well, this might be when he was employed at the restaurant.
There you go.
They made him wear a tux.
Yes. And that's funny. I'd forgotten how they resolved that question in the restaurant compared to all the different versions we've listened to.
Yes, it's easy to get confused.
Yes, well, of course, in the radio show, they left him, and he shows up in the car park.
Right.
And So now I'm curious. Now I'm trying to get my memory back in line. I can't remember. How do they don't they take him with them on? Isn't he on the Heart of Gold with them now? I don't remember.
Well, look at this. It's like we're going to experience it again for the first time.
Deja vu all over again.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I'm going to show a couple of cards, but a little bit more information about the cards. It comes from a company called Cards, C-A-R-D-Z. Again, published in 1994. There's a base set of 100 cards. It came 24 packs per box and 8 cards per pack.
Mm-hmm.
They did have some randomly packed Tech Chrome cards, some holograms,
Wow.
and 1 in every 864 packs apparently contained a card with Douglas Adams' autograph on it.
Oh, wow. You weren't lucky enough to get one of those, were you?
I do not have one of those. No, I do not.
Bummer. I know how much of a completist you are when it comes to these trading cards. So tell me, I don't recall us doing a lot of collecting back in the day, and this would have been before your major collections, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. This came out a couple of years before I was into trading cards.
Right. So were you able to purchase boxes of these cards like we used to?
I don't remember if I got this by buying a box or if I traded for the set.
There you go.
Because I had a lot of extras.
Right. I know we did a bunch of different things. And of course, when you and I were collecting similar sets, we would buy, maybe 3 boxes and open up all the different packages to create collections and end up with lots and lots of extras and, full sets of the regular set looking for the magic card that we never really got.
Yes. So that said, we're going to move to the first card. And
all right.
These had nothing to do with anything that was in the first book. So this is called Marvin at the Beach. So,
oh my gosh.
This is Marvin standing under an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like a kid is afraid, a woman is waving at him, and a man is shaking his fist at him. So
Right. And I love how the characters in the background in some of these scenes really have that reminiscence of Mad Magazine,
Yes.
That kind of cartoonishness.
Right. So the card back says, the blazing sun, the cooling surf, and who better to spend it with than Marvin, your own chronic depressive plastic beachside pal. Here we're treated to a lovely surfside view as he tests the waters for his future ex-owners.
So long, we're out of here. Maybe that's what they're doing, waving goodbye.
That's right. And the next card is Marvin Saves the Universe. And this one looks like it has the woman from Women Were Real Women.
Right. Superwoman kind of look to her with a suit on, and she's holding a blaster, and they look like they're on that cross between that dragon planet and the dinosaur planet or something, don't they?
Yes, yeah. It's kind of hard to tell where they are, but yeah, it's got dragons and some kind of creatures with teeth and a floating city in the background.
Mm-hmm. Marvin's it's got regalia on, including a quite lethal-looking sword.
Yes.
But is he pointing at something and shooting a laser beam? Or I can't quite tell.
It does appear that he is pointing and shooting a laser beam. I don't know exactly how that happens, but he's magic.
That's right.
So this card says, Marvin on Saving the Universe. I think you ought to know I'm not feeling very heroic at all. Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and it's save the beautiful space princess, Marvin. Overthrow the evil despot, Marvin. It's quite depressing, really.
Oh, very good.
And the next card is called Marvin, Every Kitty's Pal.
Oh my gosh. How did they make him look like it before it exactly existed?
Right. I don't know. Holding a
Oh
single
my
balloon
gosh.
with a bunch of
Uh-huh.
scared children around him.
Yep, they look like the little rascals down there.
Yeah,
The one
it
kid
does.
looks like hair like Eddie Munster or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. But he's carrying a balloon with a little red nose and a painted on smile.
Right.
Big red shoes.
And it says, nothing ends a children's birthday party faster than an appearance from Marvin, the paranoid android. Just paint a happy face on Marvin, let him tell his horrid tales of depression, and start counting the presents and empty chairs.
Oh, and the more I look at it, does that look like a young Ford on the bottom left?
Yes, yes, it does.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
The next card is called Marvin's Brain. So here,
Oh,
it's kind of,
he's definitely looking like Frankenstein.
Yes, he
Monster,
does.
I should say.
Right.
His shoes are elevated, and they look like
Yep.
the giant feet, and the characters in the background are a woman and a man dressed in looks like lab coats.
Lab coats, right. And Marvin's kind of hunched forward posture. And then it's got this dome over his head, which I'm not exactly sure if that's them reading his brain or...
The power of his depression spreading out
Yes.
as a dome across his head. And the card says?
The card says, he's always saying that his brain is the size of a planet, and these scientists tried to prove it is physically impossible. Later, as this unlucky couple picked through the remains of their lab equipment, Marvin was heard to say, I never said it was a large planet.
Oh, I love it.
And then there's one more called Marvin, Your Host. And here he is dressed in that tuxedo.
Oh, yep, there he is. There he is.
And it looks like he's doing some stand-up.
Yes, he's definitely standing up.
Well, the word bubble above his head says, a very depressing thing happened to me on my way to Milliways. And he's got a floating microphone in front of his face and a crowd of people all looking at him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it says, Marvin's held many jobs throughout his existence, and they've all depressed him terribly. In this occupation, as the master of ceremonies at a dreadful posh nightclub restaurant, he was fired after far too many patrons pleaded for food poisoning during his act.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so now we will jump back to the comic book, and there will be no other diversions to cards from this point on in this issue.
All right, if you say so.
Again, it's going to start with the copyright page.
Yes. Is this a new name, Hendrix, or did I just imagine
Shepard
that?
Hendrix is a new name. He is going to do the pencils and inks on the front. Here it says finishes.
Mm-hmm.
And he is credited in 3 issues only. And
Okay.
this is not one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so this did not show up on his list of credits, even though he's clearly here. So we know he has at least 4.
Right.
And then on the bottom, it's lettered by John Workman.
Okay.
He's credited with 1,788 issues. So
Wow.
he's done a lot of lettering. And you
Yes.
will notice that the lettering is quite different than it was in the last series of books.
Interesting. Oh, my goodness. Starting with the next page?
So right there, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
This is the ever-continuing story of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So it's kind of the story so far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they got a couple of images from the previous comic book with Ford.
Ford and the Vogon reading
Yes.
poetry. Or at least repeating what he said about poetry.
Yes. And then Slarty Bartfast bringing him to his office. And then on the next page it continues.
Oh, my.
talking about the mice,
Mm-hmm.
wanting the question.
Right.
And then it's the last panel, the bottom of the page of the other book,
Right.
where they're off to the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find funny because this book doesn't start out at the restaurant at the end of the universe. At least it shouldn't, because that's not where the real book started.
Right. Right. Ah, full page.
Yes. And this is the full page that is going to state one of my favorite theories in their book,
Mm-hmm.
which is that if anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable. And there is another theory which states that this has already happened. And this is a nice, I don't know, pleasing space shot.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Swirling eddies everywhere.
Yes. Oh, here in this double spread, it literally says the story so far.
Oh, okay.
But it's not well, it is kind of the story so far, but not having anything to do with Arthur and our gang.
Right. Now we're back to the Jack Travarted people and their multiple arms and being the first race to develop the underarm deodorant
Yep.
before the wheel.
And here they have basically 20 arms, not
Yes.
50, but
Yes,
hey, it's better than we've seen before.
that's right. That's right.
And it talks about the race of hyper-intelligent beings who wanted to know the ultimate answer, and they got 42. So they built another computer called the Earth to find out what the question was. But before the moment of readout, the Earth was destroyed to make way for a hyperspace bypass. And so all hope of discovering a meaning for life was lost forever, or so it would seem.
Oh my goodness. Now we're back towards the Heart of Gold.
Yes. And they just seem to be flying along, but they're being followed.
Mm-hmm. Somewhere in the inky blackness of space, the spaceship Heart of Gold.
And then we've got Vogon Jeltz, it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
asking the computer to contact his brain care specialist. And then here, we get to see his conversation with Gag Hellfront.
Mm-hmm.
But do they even say it's Gag Hellfront? They don't. So the conversation is identical,
Mm-hmm.
where he just says that he seems to be acting like a Vogon, and he says that's what you always say. And he's like, well, then I must be acting like a psychiatrist. So we're all doing what we're supposed to do.
Oh my gosh.
And it looks like as he's giving his therapy, he's got a sweater vest or whatever and a bow tie and a long sleeve shirt, but he's got swim pants on and he's getting a pedicure.
Yes, yes. And then, of course, he asks Vogon Jeltz who else is there, and he tells him that Beetlebrox is there, and he says, that's a shame. He was one of my most profitable clients.
Yes.
And then he asks him if he's ready for his task.
He says yes. He tells him to destroy the ship immediately.
And then Vogon says, attack.
Yes. And then we go to the ship that's going to be attacked, and all just seems pretty boring. It's Arthur trying to get some tea. And he's very disappointed with it. And he spits it out, and he's trying to explain what tea is. And let's see if they do it correctly here. Nope, he does not ever utter the question simply like, do you know why I want a cup of tea? And that was the one that bogged down the computer in the radio show.
Mm-hmm.
It's asking, you know why I want a cup of tea? And he was trying, like, I don't know. And he couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So here he's just trying to
the scribe a cup of tea, explaining all of the different pieces of it, including the tea leaves drying in the sun.
And boiled.
And then the Drink-O-Matic machine says, wait a minute, I'm going to need some help on this one.
Right.
And then starts talking to the computer.
Right. And Arthur asks if there's anything else he can do, and he's told he's done quite enough. All right. And so then at the very end, it basically says that the Nutramatic explained T to the ship's computer, and the computer boggled linked circuits with the Nutramatic, and together they lapsed into a grim silence.
The next page, it looks like Arthur has made it back to the bridge.
Which is still fetchingly redesigned.
Yes. Here it looks more like a garden tea set or something like that. Because Trillian's sitting at a table on a chair, and Ford's banging on a computer terminal, it looks like. And Zaphod seems to be sitting in some kind of a driver's seat of some sort, or along those lines anyway.
And Arthur comes in and asks if anyone has a kettle, and they're all frantically trying to do something because they're under attack.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, and the problem is the computer's jammed up with something, so they can't do any evasive maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur wants to know if the computer told them what's jamming it up.
Didn't rat me out now, did it?
Yeah.
And of course we get the "what have you done to it, monkey man" comment from Zaphod.
Yep. He just says, I was trying to work out how to make some tea.
That's right, guys. I'm coping with the problem now, and wow, it's a biggie. Be with you in a while.
And then we go back, and now he says attack again.
And they start shooting beams at the shoe-shaped heart of gold.
Yes. And this is where Ford gets to use the line, dying for a cup of tea, eh, Arthur?
I love that line. Now Ford looks like Dennis the Menace here.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Oh.
And I don't know, Zaphod, his pose there, it looks like he's trying to learn how to slow dance.
It's interesting how the art changes over each different comic.
Right.
Here the lines are far simpler, and the chiseled nature of the characters kind of disappears. Like, I don't want to say less time was spent creating the images, but they do seem a tad bit simpler.
Yes.
Overall.
I agree. And this is where Zaphod decides he wants to have a seance.
Mm-hmm. Of course, everyone's confused about why.
Yep, and he wants to talk to his great-grandfather, who is Zaphod Beeblebrox IV.
Arthur questions why he would be the fourth, and Zaphod explains their lineage, or minusage.
Minusage, right. And Ford is counting down the time to destruction.
Mm-hmm. He seems to have a digital watch on.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the computer that did it in the book, and they kept yelling at him.
No, it was Ford. Ford kept yelling.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my, this is interesting.
Yeah, so now they're kind of in a forest, still on the bridge of the Heart of Gold.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling for Zaphod Beeblebrox IV, and as soon as Zaphod says, dead people, who needs them, he realizes that he's there.
Right. It's interesting. I'd never seen him depicted. Well, I don't know that we see him depicted in anything except this. And here he has two heads.
He has two heads. So I was actually happy to see this. And he's only got two arms, because they talk about Zaphod having that third arm added.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And his great-grandfather is telling him how disappointed he and his late grandmother are. And he's apologizing for not sending flowers because the shop was fresh out of wreaths.
Oh, yes, the living. What contempt for the dead.
Yes.
And of course, then he starts panicking because they're under attack.
Right. By a Vogon fleet. And it was one ship.
And of course, his grandfather says, doesn't surprise me in the least.
Right. Ford's still counting. He's down to 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And his great-grandfather is still chastising him, saying, you go swanning around the galaxy with your disreputable friends, too busy to put flowers on my grave. Plastic ones would have done. But no, too busy, too modern, too skeptical. Till you find yourself in a bit of a fix, of course.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to think about this one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Ford's counting again. 1 minute 10.
Then grandfather asks what's the numbers all about, and Zaphod explains that that's how much time they have left to live.
Right. Great-grandfather's asking him what he's made of his life, and he's going, I was president of the galaxy.
And what kind of job is that for a Beetlebrox, he says.
Yes. Ford's counted to 50 seconds, and great-grandfather's saying, have you forgotten why you became president? And he's saying, yes, I have.
He goes on to explain that if they found my head full of tricksy ideas, I'd been out on the streets again with nothing but a fat pension and 2 slit throats.
Right.
And then Grandpa says, oh, so you do remember.
Right. Now there's 48 seconds, and it looks like great-grandfather snapped his fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And now the noise has stopped. And he says that he slowed down time, so he'd have time to say everything that he has to say.
Oh my gosh.
And for somebody who's looking for help from his great-grandfather, calling him an old bat, probably not.
It doesn't seem like a nice thing to do.
No.
Then he argues with himself. Zaphod
Yes.
does.
Yeah, and he's talking about how the old me knew what it was for and why he became president and why he stole the heart of gold. But it's locked off, and the bits that knew and cared couldn't be known because if he knew and cared, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And everybody's just staring at him as he's arguing with himself more and more.
Right. Talking about all the sacrifices he's made, locking off a part of his brain.
Mm-hmm.
He decides that he doesn't want to know what it is, and he is not going to be anybody's puppet. And on the next page, it says, particularly not my own. And then he's all, both of his heads are happy and smug.
Oh, gosh.
And then, of course, he's yelling at his great-grandfather about the dead shouldn't hang about trying to interfere with the living. And he's basically, you called me.
Oh, there you go. Then Grandpa explains to Zaphod that he knew and the folks knew before him that the president is nothing, a cipher. And somewhere in the shadows, another man, being something with ultimate power, is in control.
Right. And he's told he has to find that other man who's in control.
Mm-hmm. And Zaphod, the picture they show is one of Zaphod's head sticking his tongue out at his grandfather.
Yeah, behind his back.
Oh my gosh.
His great-grandfather says, I will not argue with you. You will simply take this ship to where it is needed. And don't think for 1 minute that you can escape your purpose. The improbability field controls you. You are in its grip.
And here's where Grandpa says, oh, and Zaphod says, yeah, if you ever find you need help again, if you're in trouble, need a hand out of a tight corner, Zaphod says, yeah. And Grandpa says, please don't hesitate to get lost.
Right.
And then the next page, you see ziquack and poof. And it appears like there's a large explosion in space.
Yes, so at the exact moment that the great-grandfather poofed them out of existence,
Mm-hmm.
the Vogons believe they destroyed the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the brain care specialist on the bottom,
Right.
watching it all on some sort of portal.
Mm-hmm. Like a bubble kind of projection. and his manicurist is now pouring him a drink.
Yes. And now I'm going to say this with certainty. This line is not in the book.
Oh, no. How dare you?
So the brain care specialist is saying, yes, excellent. The psychiatric profession is saved. No more ultimate question. No more ultimate answer. Here's a toast to life, the universe, and everything, and all the highly profitable patients who can make head or tail of it. And then he laughs maniacally. Yep, just like that.
Perfect. I will agree wholeheartedly. That is not in the book.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So now we're on the Heart of Gold, and Ford is looking over toward where Zaphod used to be and saying, family's always embarrassing. Zaphod? Where's Zaphod?
Yep, he notices Zaphod is gone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where's Marvin? Marvin's gone too.
And then he says, Eddie, where are we? And that's funny because did we get Eddie out of it at all? I mean, I know we talked about it before. I don't think the comic books has mentioned Eddie as the computer.
Yes, Eddie has said his name.
Point. Oh, did he say his name in the last book?
Eddie has said his name in the last book, yes.
Okay.
And Eddie regrets to tell them that he's been temporarily closed to all communication. Meanwhile, here's some light music.
And then Arthur picks up something and he said, someone's left a note. And
Trillian
says, what? Yeah. And Trillian says, what's it say? It says, wait, responds Arthur.
Yes.
And we have a shot of the shoe in space.
Yes, just kind of, I don't know, staticky, red, electricity around it.
Hovering. Yep. And meanwhile...
Ursa Minor Beta. One of the most appalling places in the known universe.
Yes, we see a planet that's got palm trees and beaches and people under umbrellas with glasses of, well, all kinds of beverages, it looks like.
Yes.
And then I suppose those guys in the sky are mine surfers or something like that they call them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's the home of one of the most remarkable, certainly the most successful books ever to come out of the great publishing corporations of Ursa Minor, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So here we get to see the Twin Towers.
Uh-huh, that's funny. And I don't know if you see this in the bottom right-hand corner panel. There's 3 aliens sitting there drinking. Mm-hmm. The middle alien appears to be a biro.
Yeah, he does.
Well, there's a little joke, inside joke for the fans, huh?
Yes.
Oh, it's funny. On the next page, there's a waiter standing, taking drinks order, it looks like.
Yep.
From a couple of people. And he actually looks like a pencil.
Right. He does.
But the whole point of this image, I guess, is that Zaphod is being zapped into a chair on the table next to him.
Right. And he's quite different looking.
He is. That's odd, isn't it?
Yes.
His hair is all slicked back on his head, tied up in probably his ponytails, I assume.
Yes.
He looks younger, healthier.
Yep. And then all of a sudden he realizes that Zarniwoop just pops into his brain.
Mm-hmm. And here's another one for those of us who are so inclined to understand. In the bottom left-hand panel, you see Zaphod sitting at a chair, and he's putting on two pairs of glasses. Okay, yes. And you can see his eyes through them and all that kind of stuff. And then in the next image to the right, it's a close-up sort of his body and face, and his glasses are pitch black.
Yes.
As he yells out, Zarniwoop.
Right.
Peril-sensitive sunglasses, anyone?
Yeah. And so then he rushes into the building, and there is a bug receptionist saying, "Hello, Megadodo Publications, home of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the most totally remarkable book in the known universe. How can I help you?"
What a collection of creatures and individuals in the lobby there.
Right. And the creature's pointing to a sign on the wall that says, "The guide is definitive. Reality is frequently inaccurate."
And then there's a gentleman with bubble thoughts above his head that says, "Mostly harmless, huh?"
Right.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. That's not in the book.
Nope. And then Zaphod is demanding to see Zarniwoop. And then is the whole conversation with the bug. The bug asks Zaphod if he could be a little bit cool about it. Mm-hmm. Zaphod is explaining that he is so cool they could keep a side of meat in him for a month. Now get me Zarniwoop. But he's on an intergalactic cruise, and he wants to know when he's going to be back. Back, sir. He's in his office. Listen, Three Eyes. You don't get to out-weird me. I get stranger things than you free with my breakfast cereal.
Who do you think you are anyways? Zaphod Beetlebrox or something?
Count the heads.
Wow. You are the Zaphod Beetlebrox?
No, just a Zaphod Beetlebrox. Didn't you hear? I come in 6-packs.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
Yeah.
Huh?
Which it's just a timing thing. I understand the joke, and the joke can work, but it's a timing issue.
Oh gosh, that's funny. More conversations with the bug.
Yes, there were reports that he was dead, that Zaphod was dead. He's like, "That's right, I just haven't stopped moving yet." And again, where do I find Zarniwoop?
And of course the bug says to him, "Mr. Beetlebrox, you're so weird, you should be in movies.
And you, baby, should be in real life." So he's on his way to the 15th floor to see Zarniwoop.
And who does he run smack into?
Marvin.
Our old friend Marvin.
For no apparent reason.
Exactly. And they don't have an argument with the elevator here.
No, and here is something that they just put in here that they don't call any attention to, but it's a really big thing. Is Zaphod asks Marvin, "How did he get here?" And Marvin has to say, "I don't know." That killed him, having to admit that he didn't know something. But
right.
Here he just, I don't know.
So they show the panel where they get into the elevator, or they're in the elevator, they're going up, and then they get off on the floor that has the bridge between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a glass bridge, too. Kind of cool.
Yes. Looks terribly frightening.
And there's a giant missiles whizzing right past it.
Zaphod says, "Hey, this building's being bombed."
Do they have it? And then, who in the galaxy would want to bomb a publishing company? And they don't have it. They don't have the response.
Have the joke. Oh, goodness gracious.
I can't believe they put in the setup without the joke. And then some stranger calls for Zaphod to rush over. And says he's a friend, and his name is Roosta.
Here's Roosta. Pushes him into the office.
Yes. Explaining that there are Frog Star fighters out there. And then there's a crack at the end.
Then they go through the sequence of different Frog Star drones flying by the door, and Rooster's explaining about them.
Yeah.
Whee!
Frog Star Class A, Frog Star Robot Class B, Frog Star Robot Class C. Oh my gosh, what's that? That's a Frog Star Robot Class D. Come to get you.
D, wait a minute. Aren't there always supposed to be 3?
There is, but there were 3 scouts. Now is the one.
Mm-hmm.
So how is he going to get away from the Frog Star Class D?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, Marvin?
Yep. Here's Marvin.
See that robot coming toward us?
And Marvin reluctantly agrees to protect Zaphod, as he would.
While they save their own skins.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love this panel.
I want
That's
to know how
glorious.
it got down the hall and onto that bridge.
I don't know, but I absolutely love it. There's a panel in description here. There's Marvin, which we know is a large robot.
Yes.
And he is standing in the middle of what we assume is the glass hallway.
Right.
And this robot attack droid is straddling the entire width of the panel. Huge wheels, multiple guns, and what looks like an eyeball on a stalk.
Right.
Comes out to speak to Marvin.
And says, out of my way, little robot.
And then Marvin says, oh, no, I'm afraid I've been left here to stop you.
You? Stop me? Okay. What are you armed with?
Guess.
Laser beams? Antimatter ray?
Oh, far too obvious.
How about an electron ram?
Ooh, what's that?
And then the robot just unleashes just...
Unleashes hell. Oh my gosh. That's
Just
amazing.
Blasts through the wall right next to Marvin's head, and he doesn't flinch. And he says, one of these.
Nope, not one of those.
Then you must have one of those new xanthic reconstruction destabilized xenon emitters.
No, you're failing to take into account something fairly basic in the relationship between men and robots. They left me, an ordinary menial robot, to stop you, a gigantic, heavy-duty battle machine, while they ran off to save themselves. What do you think they'd leave me with?
Something pretty devastating, I should expect.
I shall tell you.
Yes, all right.
Nothing.
Nothing?
And me with this terrible pain in all the diodes down my left side.
Makes you spit, doesn't it? That makes me so angry. And then he just starts shooting everything. Scrack and kaploom. I think I'll shoot down their bloody ceiling as well.
Well, that's impressive.
You ain't seen nothing yet. I can take out this floor too. No trouble. And he just blasts straight down in front of him.
What a depressingly stupid machine.
Yes, as he's plummeting 15 floors to the bottom. Meanwhile,
in Zarny Whoop's office.
Yes, he's talking to Roosta, and Roosta's explaining that they're going to take him to the Frog Star anyway.
Oh, and now we see the Frog Star fighters in the panel on the bottom left, and they are the ships represented on the front page of the comic.
Right, I guess because they kind of look like frogs in a way.
Yeah, I guess so, when you look at them.
And they have taken the building, or half of the building. So it was nice that the robot cut the bridge in half for him. Because it was
handy.
Yeah. And all Zaphod is worried about is if they have food at the Frog Star.
And
he's told he's going to be fed. He's going to be fed into the total perspective vortex.
So no food then.
No.
Oh my gosh. Let's see how they handle this one.
So yeah, the building's flying through space now.
Let's see. They talk about the vortex.
And Roosta is trying to explain the devastating effects of the total perspective vortex. And Zaphod asks if he'd ever had a Pangalactic Gargle Blaster, and he's told it's worse. Free yow!
Mm-hmm. Now we see in the subsequent panels, Zaphod's hair is becoming must.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So Zaphod wants to know what any of this has to do with him. And Rooster says that Rooster himself is one of those who planned this whole thing, along with Zarniwoop, Yuden Vranks, who's a previous president, your great-grandfather, and with you, Zaphod. Me? Now, the guide is going to tell us about the total perspective vortex, and they have kept the pastel, weird color scheme for narration.
Right, and in this scene, I love it, like you said before, it's got mice in it, it's got an elephant, it's got what looks like Cthulhu or a
octopus or squid of some sort, yeah.
Yes, and it's got the whale hanging tenuously in space.
And the petunias.
Petunias, but they're comfortably seated on the floor there.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
And one small piece of fairy cake.
Mm-hmm. So that tells the story of the fairy cake and the total perspective vortex and the gentleman who invented it for his wife so that she could understand what a perspective meant.
Right.
And he puts her in it and she loses her mind.
Yes. And that's quite a face that she has with her eyes gone buggy and swirly and drooling and tongue hanging out.
He seems a little bit concerned about her.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But the one thing that people can't afford to have is a sense of proportion.
I love that line. It's so true.
Yes.
But so hard for so many folks to understand.
So now we're back on Frogstar World B, the most totally evil place in the universe.
Mm-hmm. And here's the graveyard, which I'm curious about, but it does show what would be considered buildings, not just small little offices or that kind of thing like we talked about.
Right.
Rooster says he has one job to do, and that's to tell Zaphod to go out the window.
Right.
Not go out the door.
Correct.
And then he says good luck and leaves through the door.
Right. And Zaphod immediately tries to go through the door.
But it slams shut and locked.
Right.
And then apparently that's when they actually end up landing on the planet.
Yes. And then
Zaphod takes a tumble.
And it looks like the door popped open.
Right. But he looks out the door for a moment and then finds a way out through the window.
And that building's at a
precarious,
pretty steep angle.
It is a very steep angle there. That's for sure. But he's hanging onto the ledge.
Oh, and he meets a couple of birds that talk to him.
Mm-hmm. Tells them to go away, and they say, okay.
Then there's a disembodied voice that's
right,
talking to him, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pizpot Gargarvar, custodian of the total perspective vortex.
Right. And then meanwhile, back on the Heart of Gold, we find Arthur and Trillian.
Yep.
Playing what looks like Scrabble.
Yeah.
Although the board seems to have gotten upset because they're rocking and swaying.
Getting jostled around, yes.
And Ford is trying to figure out where in the universe they are.
Right. And so back on the Frogstar, Zaphod made it to the bottom of the building.
Mm-hmm.
He's asked if he is there for the vortex.
And Zaphod explains that he's not in any hurry in particular.
No.
Oh, that's great.
And he's told he must follow this disembodied voice, and he wants to know how he can follow him.
He tells him, I'll hum for you. Just follow the humming.
And the birds with faces are watching.
Yes, quite creepy, but they are looking down upon him.
They are very creepy.
The next panel, or next page, we see at the top panel, we see these agonized screams, and Zaphod says, "What the heck was that?"
And apparently it is a recording of the last man to be put in the vortex, and it is always played to the next victim, sort of a prelude.
And they go through the story, and Argravar explains that his relationship with his body will probably end in divorce.
Right. Because it likes to party. You know, he's kind of a homebody, but his body likes to go out and party.
Mm-hmm. They always have these greatest arguments about sex and fishing.
Yeah. Eventually they tried to combine the two, but that only led to disaster.
Oh my gosh. All right. We're going on, and each of these panels we still see the human-faced birds following Zaphod on his journey into the vortex. And then we get a half page where the Argravar is explaining, similar to the book, the stories of the shoe shops.
Right. And basically, shoes made people feel better, so there became more shoe shops, and then they became unwearable, and the worse they were to wear, the more people had to buy them, and then you could have nothing but shoe shops, until the whole economy passed what is termed the shoe event horizon, and it became economically impossible to build anything other than shoe shops.
Oh my gosh, I still think that's great.
Yes. And so people were so against shoes and everything, they decided they would never walk on the ground again and mutated into human-faced birds.
They cursed their feet and promised never to touch the ground again.
Yes. And Ford gets to the vortex and says it doesn't look like a vortex.
And he says, "Oh, of course, it's just the elevator."
And then he's doing some meditation because he must get himself into the right frame of mind. So here he's kind of at the vortex, and he's asking if that's it, and he wants to know if he's supposed to get in there, and he kind of peeks in, sticks his head in.
And click.
Yep.
Gets locked in, and then a full page panel of Zaphod seeing what the universe is all about with the words, "To be continued."
Yes, he is seeing the size and the scope of the universe and his relation to it.
Amazing.
And then there is the "Be with us next time," as Zaphod emerges from the total perspective vortex.
And then one of their favorite panels is in the bottom, and it's inked in here instead of colored in.
Oh, right.
Where Zaphod is arguing with the three-eyed receptionist.
Right. Yeah. It's nice to see the art in stages.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then we get the bio pages again. Oh, and what I like here is if you look at the blue panel, they left the N out of Shepard Hendrix's name.
Hedrix. Uh-huh.
Huh. And then, of course, the DC Comic editor's page. And then finally the back cover, where they have the whale, which was from the previous book.
I know. I'm wondering why they chose that image.
I am unsure myself.
Of course, it does talk about the theory of discovering what the universe is for.
And it says, "Thus begins the next adventure of the intrepid occupants of the Heart of Gold, Arthur Dent, Ford Prefect, Zaphod Beeblebrox, Trillian, and Marvin the paranoid android. Be there, or be turned into a giant sperm whale at an improbability factor of 8,767,128 to 1 against."
So the whole thing is to set up a joke that if you don't read the next volume, you'll be turned into a whale.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. It's funny how this particular image, this one that we're looking at here, looks like the comic book is well worn on the back.
Right.
Weird.
Well, whoever scanned this into the site may have had a well-worn copy.
I guess so. Well, Jeff, what's next?
Well, what's next is we're going to do 2 bonus episodes again where we do issues 2 and 3 of Volume 2, which is Restaurant at the End of the Universe.
Hope everybody can keep all those numbers in their head.
Yes. Write them down if you can't.
Oh, yes.
So now that we've come to the end, I'm just going to have you say goodbye, Bryan.
Well, not wanting to become a whale, I think I probably will join you shortly to review the next comic.
Sounds good. See you then.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. Look for us the first Thursday of every month for a full episode. We will also release a bonus episode later in the month. A very special thanks goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. We would also like to thank our talented friends and family for their voice work on our introductions and commercials. For this episode, I would like to thank Nathan Laws from the 42 cast for our opening and Lorraine Campbell for our commercial. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com, where you can find links to all my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea, on Instagram as Watches Idea Podcast, and on Twitter at Watches Idea. If you'd like to contact us, our email is digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.